This comment reflects, I think, a misnomer that a lot of people have, which is, and I think it's a good question, which is what is more expensive? Living in France, I can't say Europe because every country's different, and so we'd have to compare country by country. But for example, Switzerland's a lot more expensive than a lot of most other countries in Europe, if not all of them. But for France and the U.S., the question becomes which one is more expensive to live in, net of adjusted for healthcare, transportation costs, like all the things for an average person in an average city. And so I dug into it because, this person's acting like, it's off the equation, like you're worse off in Europe because you make less money. And I have long thought that maybe that's not the case, but I wasn't sure. So I cracked my Chat GPT knuckles today, and I told Chat GPT to act in the context of a financial analysis expert and to do a deep dive comparison between the two, accounting for all kinds of things. And so here are the results, and they might surprise you. So just so you can see, this is the end of my prompt. It went up higher, but to determine which is more expensive to live in, including the average healthcare costs. To conduct a comparative cost of living, we need to focus on key factors, and it goes on. So it started out with like big cities, and then it did other cities. So it did like large cities like Paris versus New York, and then it also did sort of like, anywhere France, anywhere USA sort of comparisons. And it did conclusions for each subsection. So it did real estate, it did groceries, eating out, public transportation, gasoline, car insurance. Conclusion on transportation, for example, generally more expensive in France. This is one of the few that was more expensive due to the high cost of gasoline and car ownership. Public transportation, however, is much more affordable in French cities than in some major U.S. cities. So there were offsetting elements. Even in I think like the only one that was more expensive, you still had offsets because you can take public transportation. Like we have no car here in the south of France, and we do fine. We never need our car. We're totally fine, and it's super cheap to get around. Healthcare, of course, went just the way you would expect, which is that healthcare is dramatically cheaper in France due to the public system with lower premiums and out-of-pocket costs compared to the U.S. healthcare. So U.S. healthcare can be prohibitively expensive even with insurance. And as a lot of us know, in the U.S., that is a major freaking deal that can be devastating and causes many people to go bankrupt, in fact, and lose all their savings, et cetera, or at the very least, is a major drain on their finances throughout the year. Taxes were another one that you might be interested in. It said the United States progressive system rating, so it's comparing what they are as far as the federal versus the state taxes. And the conclusion was France has higher Social Security contributions and a higher VAT, the VAT tax, but healthcare and social services are more comprehensive. U.S. taxes can be lower, but healthcare and social safety nets are more robust. So essentially this gets down to the net when you include back in, because France is getting that for their tax. It's what you get for your taxes. The U.S. we get like a lot of bombs and roads and some useful things too, but we don't get a lot of Social Security type things. I'm not talking about U.S. Social Security like retirement payments, but in the French sense of the term. In the France, so then you have to go add that back in, and you can't. No Americans never want to do that. They always want to just be like, I just want to pay lower taxes. They treat it like buy term and invest the difference, like the whole life versus term insurance thing. Except it doesn't work that way because you're not dodging healthcare costs. None of us are, unless you're crazy and reckless. So, general cost of living, France tends to be more affordable in terms of daily life. And finally, the ultimate conclusion of this intense analysis was for the average person or family living in France can be more economical when factoring in healthcare and daily costs despite higher taxes. The US, while offering lower taxes, can quickly become more expensive due to housing, healthcare, and the cost of living. So there you have it. That's the latest version of ChatGPT fed with a lot of data and a really solid prompt. And it kind of bears out what I suspected, but I wasn't sure, and I was never going to say it until I saw that. But facts don't lie. As an American, I think we all bristle at the idea of paying more taxes because we've been taught to do that, and I definitely agree with that. But again, to make an intelligent comparison, we ultimately have to look at what we're getting for the taxes paid, and it would be unthinkable if there was not the provision of solid health care yeah, services in a country like France with the higher taxes that you do pay here. But at the end of the day, I've been bleeding in our family. We've been bleeding due to healthcare costs, and we're a relatively healthy family. We haven't had any major, knock on wood, issues or problems that have driven that up. It's just a regular old family in California paying out through the nose like the rest of you. And so it's interesting to me to see that.